Hi, I'm Stunning Stella Cheeks.
And I'm the Enigma Aaron Klein.
And this is
Not Your Demographic.
We used to be a feminist wrestling podcast.
Shockingly, we'd rather talk about literally anything else now.
Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It's us, your friends, Stella and Aaron.
And Jean.
And Jean.
For those of you who don't remember, the reason we just took several months off is because Aaron was pregnant as shit, and now she's not pregnant as shit, but she is a mom, and it's her first Mother's Day. Happy
Yay.
Mother's Day, Aaron.
Thank you very much. I completely forgot Mother's Day was a thing until about 4 days ago, and I was like, oh, fuck. It's Mother's Day. It was funny. Michael was like, someone asked me if we were doing anything, and I went, I don't know. So what we're doing today is I'm podcasting, and I've got Jean with me, and Michael is recocking and recrowding our shower for us.
That works. Now you'll
Happy
have
Mother's Day.
a nice shower to take baths in.
Yeah, in like 4 days when we can use our shower again.
What are you just gonna sailor bath it?
That, and I've been going to the gym like every day, so
Okay.
I was like, I'll just shower at the gym. It'll be fine. We can put up a bunch of plastic sheeting and take like a haunted house shower, basically. We were like, if we can avoid that, we might just, take sailor baths and shower at the gym as much as possible.
I mean, push comes to shove, you're welcome to use one of my showers.
Thank you very much. Part of the reason he's doing it this weekend is because he was going to do it next weekend, which means I wouldn't have been able to shower before or after the Plan 9 show. I was like, I don't think you want me to do that.
No, you want sweat and glitter and despair.
Right? Like climb into bed like, hey, what's up?
Though, to be fair, we wrote you a part where you literally just get to sit in the audience and yell at us. So.
Of all of the shows where it might actually work for me to do that, it would have been this one. I read through the script and was like, this is good. I like this.
It's very stupid. There are several parts where I'm like, I'm going to crack on stage. There's no way I'm not going to. Bob even said at one point, he was like, there's like a couple final lines, and he was like, we all have free reign to laugh at this. This is funny. It's fine.
I feel like, honestly, too, it works out because I am nothing if not a strong audience member. So there will be lots of guffawing from the audience, which I can do as opposed to me backstage going, don't draw focus to the backstage area.
Oh, don't worry. I got you a crowd spotlight.
Yeah. Woohoo.
Woohoo. Anyways, welcome back. We're Not Your Demographic. We're a tangent podcast that maybe sometimes talks about wrestling, mostly talks about books, is about to get real fucking serious and furious. So
welcome back, everybody.
Welcome back. Buckle up. We're gonna mix it up. We're just gonna fucking rant right up top because part of the reason we wanted to come back is because this is a semi-political podcast, I guess. And I don't know if you guys have been, alive for this week, but if you have, oh, holy shit. This country sucks.
Yep, it sure the fuck does. It sure the fuck does. If you've been living, I don't know, in another country to your
good
own benefit, yeah, fucking good for you, man. Or somehow have managed to miss the news. I'm very envious. Stella's referring to the fact that a majority draft opinion for the first time ever leaked from the Supreme Court, and they look like they're about to overturn Roe versus Wade with truly one of the most horrifying majority opinions I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
It's fucked up on so many different levels.
It reads legitimately like you pulled it out of a dystopian novel. Like,
yes, it absolutely does.
I've said it in our regular life. I don't know if I've said it on this podcast because we podcast so much and so little at the same time. It's hard to keep track. But truly, I feel like we as an American society specifically, I think it could be extended to the world. But specifically to us, I feel like we are a frog just sitting in a pot being like, this is fun. La 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 la. Oh my God, I'm dying.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
There's a line, I can't remember it off the top of my head because it's the morning. But there's a line that literally basically boils down to well, we need babies because they are our workforce.
Yeah. And also, like, pregnant women should carry babies to term because we need a capitalist force for adoption, which is just the most fucked up possible thing you can say. Like,
Also,
we need to
adoption, a
meet the
really
market
fucked
value.
up yeah, adoption is a really fucked up industry. I think that you should that it should be a more accessible, like, I, as a person who might wanna have kids, wants to adopt, but I have a lot of, like, ethical quandaries
Yeah.
about it, like, how do I do it in a way like, I wanna provide homes for babies that are already born, but how do I do it in a way that's not in this fucked up system, and also, like, it's so messed up. It's not like, "Oh, well, if you're pregnant and you don't want it, just give it up for adoption." It's really easy. It is not easy.
It's not fucking easy. And also, as again, somebody who was just very recently pregnant, it's not like pregnancy's a fucking breeze. It's not like
It's
you
also
can just
expensive.
it is so expensive, and it's not like if you it's not like you check a box and it's like, "Oh, the government will just cover all of your costs because you're gonna give this baby up for adoption." No, you have to cover all of that cost. And also, I don't know if you know this, I'm sure that you do. I'm mostly saying that flippantly. I just got my fucking hospital bill from giving birth. Holy shit. Like, we have very good insurance. And it's still gonna cost us like 8 fucking grand. And that's on the low end of what we have to pay. If you look at our raw bills, if we didn't have insurance or if we had really shitty insurance, that whole just the birth, not anything before that, not any of the prenatal care, not any of the stuff we had to buy for the baby, none of that. Just literally going into the hospital, getting this kid ripped out of my abdomen, and then like staying in the hospital the required 4 days afterwards. It was like $50,000. It's insane. If we lived in a country that actually gave a fuck about babies and mothers giving birth, that shit would be free. And it's not at all by any stretch of the imagination. And so to just be like, yeah, go through with this 9-month pregnancy, do all the shit that you have to, because if you don't and you have a miscarriage, there are states where they'll fucking arrest you and they'll put you in jail because they'll say that you gave yourself an abortion, because it's, spoiler, almost impossible to tell the difference between an abortion and a miscarriage early enough in a pregnancy. And so really what's happening is they're just going to outlaw anything except giving birth to a baby. It's not
Even though
pro-life.
miscarriages are really common.
Fucking common as
They're
hell. And
really
also,
common.
like, and we've said this a million times, a lot of abortion isn't just, I got pregnant because I wasn't paying attention and I'm a slut and I deserve that, like, which isn't true either, but like a lot of abortions are because babies aren't viable or the life of the mother is at risk. Like, it's not just this like flippant thing of, oh well, you shouldn't have sex if you don't want a baby. A lot of people who have abortions really fucking want a baby and just cannot support the life of that child because it will kill them or the baby's already fucking dead inside of them. Again, as someone who just gave birth, I literally cannot fucking imagine what it would be like to know my child was dead inside of me and, oh, you just gotta sit with that for like 3 more months and then give fucking birth. Like, it makes me so furious to my core as a person. Like, it's I was already very pro abortion. I was already very much on the side
Yeah.
of more abortions. A lot of people are like, no one's pro abortion. No one wants more
I'm super abortion.
I'm
I don't
so
care
pro abortion.
if it is, this is my life, or like my life is on the line, the baby's life is on the line, whatever. If you are just a dumb slut and I got
Yeah,
pregnant, I don't care, get an abortion. Fucking who
absolutely.
cares?
I totally agree. I think that if
Dumb
anybody
slut said with love.
Oh, absolutely. Not a derogatory thing at all. Dumb slut.
Yeah.
I'm pro dumb slut. Absolutely.
Pro
100%.
abortion, pro dumb slut.
100%. Absolutely. But like I was already so pro abortion and so pro do whatever the fuck you want. It's your body. You should be allowed to make your fucking healthcare decisions. But man, having been pregnant and now having a child has made me radically pro abortion. Like, I don't know that I didn't think I could get more pro abortion. But now having lived through this experience and knowing how fucking hard it is, like, absolutely. Anyone who doesn't want to do this should not fucking do it. And anyone who has a terminal illness living inside of you should not have to go through the pain of carrying this for 9 months, loving that child inside of you, and then giving birth to a dead baby. Like, that's also
or having to make the choice, my life or its life. Like, that's not fair.
right. Not
Also,
even
to
like
be fair, or not to be fair, to be clear, motherhood mortality rates, birth mortality rates in this country, the like Western civilized, whatever, blah 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 country, is on par with a lot of third world countries. Like,
it's insane.
women giving birth die a lot more than you think they do in this country.
And also, to be explicitly clear, it is women of color who
Yeah.
absolutely suffer from this more than anybody else. Like, it happens to white women, but like, it really fucking happens to women of color. And it's because of fucking medical racism. Doctors don't give a shit. They don't listen to concerns by people of color. And like, and
Also medical classism too.
absolutely 100%. And again, to be clear too, it's not just women who go through this. It is trans men, it is non-binary people. Like, there is a level of bigotry that exists with that as well. Like, imagine being a trans man of color who's forced to give birth. Like, that those hospitals are basically saying, we're ready for you to die. Like, that they don't give a fuck. They explicitly don't think that you should be the person that you are, and now they're trying to forcefully detransition you by forcing them to go through pregnancy. Like, let's be 100% clear that that's also what's happening. Like,
Yeah.
it's not just you have a uterus and so we think that you should carry a child. It's, I don't believe that you should be living your truth as a trans man. I'm going to forcibly medically detransition you so that you can give birth to this child. Like, fuck that. It is so fucked up, and like, it is a thing that is whitewashed out of a lot of this conversation, which is also
Yeah.
very upsetting.
Also, just to be clear, because like this is a complicated conversation. There are trans men who do want to give birth, and that is
Oh
okay.
yeah.
But there are a lot of trans men that like will be put in this position. That's not fair.
Right, exactly. That's what I mean about, like, if you're a trans man who doesn't want to give birth and you cannot now have an abortion, you are being forcibly
Yeah,
detransitioned in order to
100%.
do that.
It's just very upsetting because it's just like a lie, right? Like, for these people to be like, "We're pro-life," it's like, you're really not.
You're
Like,
not.
there if you were pro-life, we would have, healthcare for all, we would have UBI, we would have free childcare, we would have, like, paid leave more paid leave off for men and women when they give birth. We would have better adoption agencies and,
We'd
like,
have free
support
daycare.
families. We'd have free daycare. We would have like better mental health services. You know what is super hard? Losing a baby. Do you know what's
Mhm.
super hard? Giving birth that's successful. Do you know what's super hard?
Yeah.
Being a parent. Do you know what's super hard? Raising a family. Like, it is so weird in our Western society, specifically like our Eurocentric society, that we like prize, quote, the family, but we are also these like hyper individualistic
Mhm.
cultures which don't support families. Like,
No.
like, what's that old saying? Like, it takes a village. Like, yeah, it actually does take a village to raise like viable humans and people who are
Mhm.
complete and people who don't turn out to be like weird fucking incels in their basement because nobody talked to them and their like parents ignored them because they didn't actually want to have a kid but like were forced to have a kid. Like,
Mhm.
we are in these like, people bitch about all the time like social media is the devil, it's really isolating us, and like, yeah, like that is a symptom but it is not the cause. Like, it
Mm-mm.
exacerbates this already hyper individualistic, like, we are on our own, like, this is my property, this is where I live. Like, we are not a community doesn't actually really exist. And then the cultures and politics and stuff that lean more towards community, it's like, oh, well, that's fucking socialism. And I was like, yeah, well, because it's based on fucking community, you idiots. Like, you
Mhm.
can't tell me you're pro-life when the choices you're making are actively going to kill people, are actively going to kill communities, are actively going to keep like people poor. Like, this is a blatant capitalist, like, dystopian, disgusting, like, we are white, rich, and in power, and that's how we want to stay. Like, if just fucking
Mhm.
say it. And honestly, they basically are at this point, which is actually the
Yeah.
fucking scary part. That majority opinion is insane. It is literally ripped from a fucking dystopian novel. I know I've said it a million times, but it is it is wild to read that and be like, this isn't a piece of fiction. This is
For real.
that's that is disgusting, and I can't even like even fathom it a little bit. And then Roe hasn't even been fucking overturned, and some of the shit that like Republicans in Congress and in like state houses and stuff have just been fucking saying out loud have been insane. Like, let's be clear, if Roe falls, then gay marriage is going to be up for debate, like equal rights is going to be up for debate. There are
birth control.
There are people in Congress that are like, well, we should probably repeal the laws where like white people can get married to black people or like that shit is for real. This is not like virtue signaling or being like, oh, we're being really like virtue signal is not the right thing. Hyperbolic, like we're being really dramatic. Like we're actually not at this point. Roe v. Wade is technically about privacy. It's not like is about abortion, but like the way that it was phrased is about privacy. And if you overturn something that's about privacy and is basically like, well, the government doesn't give a shit about this anymore, then guess what? All of your like social politics or whatever, like that is technically falls in the realm of like privacy. And so like also if you're one of these people out here being like, well, I'm socially liberal but I'm fiscally conservative so I vote this way, like your money is not more important than people and you're an asshole and you like fuck you, like fuck you deeply. If you care more about your money than other people's lives, like honestly, fuck you. And I know that that is a shitty thing to say. And I sit from a place of privilege where like I do have enough money to pay my bills and stuff. But like, I'm sorry. Like, also, you're voting in a way that's going to keep you poor. Like, I don't, that's a complicated thing to say. Like, whatever. I think everybody knows what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah, I mean, that you're right, though. That the kind of people who say, that they're voting because of they're fiscally conservative, like you're voting for policies that don't actually help that in any way. What you're really voting for is tax breaks for millionaires and for corporations, which are treated more like people than actual people.
We literally have a law that corporations are treated more like people than people are. Those are laws. Those are laws. The law of the land? Are you kidding me?
And if Roe falls, living women, trans men, non-binary people with uteruses will have less rights than corpses, which a lot of people have been repeating is like, oh, look at this fucked up thing, but is true. Like, you can't take organs from a corpse that they didn't agree to before before they were post-mortem. And so the idea that you can forcibly make a person keep something inside of their uterus without their consent means that I have less rights than a dead person. And like, that's not a joke. It's not hyperbolic. It is actually what is fucking happening. And it's horrifying. And that we can just like, it'll be fine. And we can just go past this is just truly the most horrifying bullshit. And like you said, once this falls, this isn't the end game. That's what's fucking terrifying about it.
This is step one.
This is a domino.
Step one was packing the courts, and step two is honestly, too, fuck Ruth Bader Ginsburg and fuck like Justice Breyer. Fuck them both. I don't want to see your RBG like sweaters and shit. Fuck both of them. Deeply, truly, fuck them both.
Absolutely. I completely agree. This whole like, oh, well, I want to be like Ruth. Like, no, don't be like Ruth. Ruth should have fucking retired in 2013 when there was a supermajority in the fucking House and Senate and we had a Democratic president. Like, this could have been avoided and fucking wasn't, because people in their 80s think that they are entitled to lifelong positions till they fucking die. Like, just because you can remain in your position until you die doesn't mean you fucking should. And also, like, senators who are like, oh, but don't be like that, I can still do this job. No, you can't. No, you can't. You have been a fucking millionaire for decades. You do not represent the people that you say you represent anymore. I'm so fucking frustrated. Sorry, this gotta.
The like, baby is like, Mom, you're yelling a lot.
It's getting heated over here, Mom. I'm just gonna spit my pacifier out so you'll pay attention to me. It is so fucking frustrating that I don't really even identify as a Democrat. I vote Democrat, but I'm like not a Democrat.
I vote lesser of two evils. Like that, that's what sucks. But it's true because like I know a bunch of people are out here being like, well, don't tell me to vote. It's like, no, but you still have to. That's the problem. Like I get that you're disillusioned. I totally understand. The bare minimum we still have to do is still vote to keep these dum-dums in power because the other option is so much worse. But like it can't be just vote. It has to be vote and 100 other things, which is like exhausting. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, it's okay. You're totally right. And I feel I absolutely feel the disillusionment and I completely understand it. And it's like democracy is a living thing that we have to constantly fight to keep alive, clearly. But it's also okay. The other thing is, we as a society have also fallen away from, I'm going to show up outside your fucking house and tell you what the problem is here. And like that has also started to happen a lot more, especially in the last couple of years, but really in the last week, like people are showing up at politicians' houses and being like, hey, do you remember 100 years ago when we used to drag people into the street and beat them to death because they didn't do what we fucking wanted? Like, do I think it's a great idea to threaten politicians? Maybe not. Do I think it's fucking effective? Yes. I fucking do. Like, it is like, is violence the answer? Sometimes, yeah. And like,
Yeah.
fascism doesn't go away because you love it to death. It goes away because you violently oppose it. And like, we are living inside of that world right now. And it is really hard to figure out what do we do. But like, I think a really good like level for this is, what would you have done during World War II? What would you have done during Nazi fascism? If you were saying at the time, oh, well, I would have given quarter to Jewish people who were trying to escape, I would have violently opposed the Nazis. Guess what? Now's your time. Now is the time to do those things that you said that you would have. Otherwise, you wouldn't have fucking done those things. Like that. That's a huge line for that. That was a tangent. What I was going to say is, I'm so fucking frustrated that as a party for 50 years basically, Democrats have run on the idea of, oh no, they might overturn Roe versus Wade, you better vote to keep us in power, and have used it as this like election issue and haven't actually fucking done anything to make this like federally legal and codify it into law. And so now we're at this point where we have two fucking dumb ass senators who are like, actually, I don't think that we should do this and break the filibuster, when, make no goddamn mistake, the second McConnell has a majority in the House, they will get rid of that filibuster and they will make it federally illegal to have an abortion. We are very lucky to live in Illinois, a state that very, very much supports abortion. I was at the abortion rally yesterday in downtown Chicago, and Pritzker was there. Like, he shows up for this shit and has made a bunch of announcements about like, we will continue to be a safe haven for people who want abortion to come here. Like, join the railroad, everybody. Host people who need to come to our state for abortions. Like, there will be more than half of the states in our country are going to make it fucking illegal to have an abortion. Sign up to help people cross borders. Take your own time and your own safety into account for this, and help people come to states where they can have a safe haven to have an abortion.
Yeah,
but
dude, if you're listening to this podcast and you need an abortion and you need a place to stay, you can contact us.
Yes, we will help you figure that shit out. Absolutely 100%. Like, it now is, like you were saying, Stella, now is the time for both voting and for action. Like, we can't just sit and talk about this. This is something we need to like physically participate in. And again, we are very lucky to live in a state where it is legal and it will remain legal as long as it is not federally outlawed. But that's coming. Like, that, you think that Republicans are just going to settle for, oh well, half the states don't do it? No, like, because they know that this shit is happening, that there will be border crossings, that there are going to be people who flee states where it is illegal to go to places where it's legal. Like, they want it to be fully illegal. And again, this is not the last thing. The birth control will fall. Like, make no mistake about that. And just because it's popular with citizens means fucking nothing.
Did you know what else is actually popular with citizens?
Abortion. Absolutely. Absolutely. And even with people who say that it's not popular with them, still get them. That's the fucked up thing.
Yeah, we should call the name this podcast today Make No Mistake, because make no mistake, Republicans' wives, daughters, mistresses, like, I think that's like a Lindy West quote, but it's true. Like, they will always have access to safe abortions, because rich people will still be able to get abortions. It is people who can't afford them who will do them in a way, because like, abortions will still happen. Abortions did happen before they were legal. They still happen in places that they aren't legal, and people fucking die.
Absolutely. And there are ways, I think it's important too to say, like, the kinds of early abortions that you can get through like abortion pills are pretty safe. And like, that stuff is still legal through the mail. Now, it will not be at some point, but will still be available again because the black market exists and people will get illegal abortions. That stuff is safer and you can figure that stuff out. Day after pills, there will be an underground market for that kind of shit. That
Time
stuff
to
is
brush
still
up on your ancient Greece abortion herbs.
for real. But there are also limits to that stuff. Like, the day after pill isn't as effective after 155 pounds. Like, I, right now, post birth, who have not gotten back my original non pregnancy body, like, that stuff isn't as effective for me right now. And, like, I have been warned by my fucking doctor, not people who pretend to be doctors on the internet, my actual doctor, I should not get pregnant for an entire year after having had a pretty intense C-section. Like, that's actual doctor's orders. And so if I were to accidentally get pregnant right now, if I live in a place where it's illegal and I can't use the day after pill as effectively, I'm just fucked. Like, that's so fucked up. Like, it's so all of that to say, there are going to be ways that are still safe even if they become illegal, but it's the bigger stuff that I was talking about earlier about people who wanted to have children and are now 4 months pregnant and find out my child
Yeah.
is dead. I now have to sit with this dead child inside of me, or
Or
find
that
out
I'm gonna die if I give birth to this baby.
right, exactly. And like, there's not this the like idea too with that with the life of the mother of like, okay, well, can I just have a C-section early and have a preemie baby? No, most places won't do that. Like, no, we should really let the baby cook a little while inside of you longer. And it's like, okay, but I might die. And it's like, well, too bad. Like, that is the attitude towards this, and it just is so fucked up. Like, I'm just getting so mad.
I know. I want to make two things very clear too. If you are a Christian, a real Christian, this is not us being shitty about you. I acknowledge that, and I have friends who are like actually Christians and like actually read the Bible and like actually know that like Jesus was like, hey, everybody should be like pretty chill and take care of each other and was about community. The way that these Republicans and stuff are making it seem like, oh, this is what God would want. If you believe in God, God doesn't want that, right? Like, that's
No.
bullshit. Like, so this is not us attacking people who have genuine faith and like want to care about people. This is us attacking people who use faith as a shield and don't practice the tenets of the things that they pretend that they believe. And also us saying like, hey, if you need to cross the border and get an abortion, blah, blah, blah. That is also not us saying like, well, why don't you fucking move? I acknowledge that you
Oh
don't
yeah.
have to want to move out of your state. You can be proud to be wherever you are and like love living in, the South or whatever, and still have a complicated relationship with like politicians and stuff. And
Absolutely.
also you might not be able to afford to leave. And like,
Mhm.
so I just want to make it very clear that this is not us trying to make the people who this will affect feel bad in any
Yeah.
ways. Cause like sometimes I feel like personally for me, I can get a little elitist and on my high horse or whatever. But this is specifically about politicians, people in power, and people utilizing manipulative phrases and words and faith to fuck with people. This is not
Mhm.
about citizens. This is about people in power being fucking monsters.
Yeah, people shouldn't have to move. That's the
No.
other thing when people are like, "Oh, well, you should like with the fucking anti-trans bills in like Texas and Florida, people shouldn't have to move out of their states where they have support networks
And
because their
also to
government
stay
is fucked
alive.
up." Yeah, exactly. Like it is I agree. I'm not saying that at all. I don't think people should have to fucking move. I
Yeah.
think that is, and like you said, a lot of people can't afford to do that. It's really expensive to move. Also, like, blue cities are more expensive to live in because they have a lot of shit people need. Like, that's the other thing. You have to pay a lot more to live in a city where you can get a lot of stuff because it costs money, but that's the whole idea. We live in a fucking society. We should provide for each other. It should be a community where we do that, and people just don't want to. It's like, we should get all of this for free, and also I don't want to pay for any of it. Like, fuck you, man. I paid taxes for a really long time when I had no children that went to fucking schools because that shit's important. Like, people
Because
need
that's
to
about building community. And also, like, when people are like, I don't want to pay more in taxes, it's like, well, I don't want to pay more more in taxes for like drones. I don't want to pay more in taxes for corporate tax breaks. I don't want to pay more in taxes for bank like bailouts. Do I want to pay more in taxes for NASA? Yeah. Do I want to pay more taxes for schools? Yeah. Do I want to pay more taxes for universal healthcare? Yeah. Those are different things.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, do I want to pay taxes so that our bridges don't fall apart? Yes,
Absolutely.
I very much do.
Truly, every time I drive across a bridge, I'm like, this is the day. This is the
For
day
real,
this bridge
man.
collapse.
Dude, we were driving. Oh my god, we were driving back from the abortion rally yesterday, and we drove under one of the overpasses on the way out of the
Oof, I hate
downtown
it.
Chicago. There's just like big fucking cracks in like the support beams of those that are just not being addressed at all. And like, we live in a pretty wealthy city, and it is horrifying to drive under that shit and be like, today's the day. Today's the day this collapses and we all die under this. And like, why aren't my taxes going towards that instead of a fucking $3 billion police budget that does goddamn shit? Like,
there's nothing.
Oh my god. Yep. A cop came up and talked to me and Michael yesterday, and I was just like, don't say anything. Don't create a problem with your baby right here.
You want a sidebar story about a fun cop interaction I had? I was at Challengers a couple weeks ago, which is the comic book store I work at, and it was like 5 minutes to closing. And as we're getting ready to shut down, a fucking cop walked in, beelines it to the new releases section, is in full like fucking cop regalia. I give him a second or whatever. He's kind of browsing. I go up to him and I say, hey, just so you know, we're closing in a couple minutes. We close at 5. So if you need anything, just let me know. And he just looked at me really slowly, rolled his eyes, and then went back to like doing his perusing. And then I had to do this whole internal monologue of like, I don't own the store. Don't cause a scene. This is not like, just relax. It's fine because I have, anger issues. And that is also a place of privilege. Like, I'm a white lady. Like, if I went off on this cop, he probably would like kill me. That is a place of privilege I acknowledge. But also, so I had to do all of this mental gymnastics. And then he comes up several minutes after we've closed and slams 2 Punisher comics on the counter. And I was just like, oh, what? And so we ring him out, and then he left. He was super weird. And then we closed the door, and MJ, who works with me, was like, so that's not fun, right? When a cop comes and buys a bunch of Punisher comics. I was like, no, it's really not fun.
Woof. Man. And those are the kind of situations, like, if you own that store, you could be like, till closes in 2 minutes. Leave. Like, if you own it, you can say that shit. But again, you come from a place of privilege where they probably won't shoot you if you do that, and won't say like, oh, we thought that you were trespassing in your own store. We're just going to fucking arrest you right now. Which happens and has happened in Chicago. And there's like a huge lawsuit against the city for a Southside store that happened in very recently.
How was the abortion rally?
It was good. It was,
I saw a lot of people, so I couldn't go because it was free comic book day yesterday, which sounds so dumb to be like, I didn't go to a abortion rally because I was working for free comic book day, but whatever, I was. But while we were outside, a bunch of people would walk by with abortion signs, and we would be like, yeah, free comics and also free abortions.
Yeah, it was, I mean, protests are hard because I feel like there's a lot of, okay, first and foremost, it was great to see so many people turn out. And that's a thing that needs to continue to happen basically forever until it's codified into law. Like, we need to continue to show up for this kind of stuff in the same way that we showed up for the protest a year or 2 years ago after George Floyd, where it's like, you cannot deny that our presence exists. That's a huge part of it. So it was good to see so many people showing up. There is something very frustrating about the way that white women take over those kind of protests, and it is, I don't even know how to put it into words really, but like, there is a certain type of white woman who shows up to those protests and is like, let's make this about 18 other things at the same time, and that can be very frustrating. Like, there are lots of interconnected issues with abortion, and like we were talking about, like, especially because of this majority opinion about gay marriage and the way that trans people are being treated in law, and birth control, and fucking interracial marriage, for fuck's sake. Like, absolutely fucking insane. Like, I understand bringing that kind of stuff into a pro-abortion rally, but there's also, I like don't even know how to describe it exactly, but there were a couple of speeches where I was like, can we focus a little more? Can we be a little more focused about why exactly we're all here? Like that, but that again, it's like hard to, I understand the anger, and as
No,
a
I know what
podcast
you're
where we're
saying.
like it's super tangency about the same kind of connected stuff. Like, I also understand that, but it
It's
is
the, like,
frustrating to be
pink
in.
pussy hat women, right?
Exactly. Yes, exactly. And women with like pro Ruth Bader Ginsburg signs where it's like, all right, can we just like focus a little bit more on what exactly is going on and how we're gonna
Also,
fucking fix
again,
this?
fuck Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Yeah, 100%. Yep.
Talk about somebody who destroyed her own legacy. This is a full Undertaker situation. Fuck her.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. It's deeply fucking frustrating. But in general, it was good. And it was nice to see so many people there. It was nice to see so many men there. I feel like that is something that is it is really frustrating as a woman to be told like whatever you want to do, we'll support you. It's like, okay, but maybe you should step up a little bit
Yeah.
and
Maybe put your
maybe
dick on the line.
yeah, it's yes. And yeah, there were some organizing things about it that were a little frustrating. We were staying right behind the speakers, and there was these two volunteers who kept trying to clear people out from standing right behind the cameras, but it was like, you're just going to continue to do this. This is the only space open at this rally, and if you just keep telling people not to stand there, people will try to fill this space because there's so many fucking people here. And it's like, just let people without signs stand there. If what you're worried about is weird signs being on camera, like, just be more selective about who you let stand there. But that's like that's an organizing issue that like ultimately is not important to how the rally went. But we left right before the like march around downtown started. We had the baby, and so it was like, all right, we'll go for the rally and the speeches, but then like let's remove ourselves from the march in case, I don't know, somebody drives a fucking car through it, like,
Yeah.
which is shitty that you have to think about that kind of stuff, but like is also something that you have to think about. And so we chose to leave before the march, but we were downtown while it was still happening, and so it was pretty moving to see so many people marching downtown. That line was long. There were a lot of fucking people there. And they're doing one next weekend and probably the weekend after that. Like it was nice to see so many people so committed to like, we're here and we're not going away. So that in that sense, I'm really glad that we went. And we'll probably go to more of them. We can't go next weekend because we have Plan 9 and
Is it next
2
Saturday?
book clubs. Yeah. Yeah, it's next Saturday. So
I
like
might still go. Fuck
yeah.
it.
Yeah, so like I said, I think it's important that people continue to show up to those, and like it was really nice to see a huge variety of speakers who were talking about, again, a lot of these issues are interconnected, and showing up and seeing like a bunch of different kinds of people are mad about this, and a bunch of different people who hold different kinds of power are here and are mad about this was actually really great. And again, we're really lucky. We live in Chicago, in Illinois. Like
Yeah.
we're in a
And
very
honestly, all politicians are kind of like broken in their brains a little bit, but like Pritzker is a good governor.
I know. I don't
He's like
understand.
a really good
He's
governor.
like one of 2 billionaires that I'm like, you can live, I guess. Like,
Yeah, when the like guillotines come out, like I'll chop your head off last.
yeah, right. Like, it it's so weird to live in Illinois and be like, governor's good. I think
He like handled the pandemic really well. He's handling like this really well.
he's paying back our
Whatever.
debts so that we're not like beholden to a bunch of other like corporations and companies. And like, I live down the fucking street from Blago. Like,
Yeah. More billionaires should make me confused. Like, more billionaires should be good and make me confused. Like, I wanna
completely
hate
agree.
you. Like, my philosophy is to hate you, but you're doing a lot that is confusing to me. More billionaires should be like that. But,
Yeah,
if more billionaires were like that, then, we probably wouldn't have a lot of the problems that we have. It's almost like they're billionaires because of the way, well, the math checks out.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, we're also like in the middle of the election cycle in Illinois and Chicago right now, and so it's weird to see all of the like, here are the ads attacking Pritzker, and it's like, these aren't good.
Because they're like, I don't know, man. What do we say?
Yeah, it's bizarre. Also, like, just as a total sidebar, seeing all of the ads for Pritzker's reelection campaign and all of them have subtitles on them makes me so happy. Like, it's such a small thing to do. It's such a like you it's such a ridiculous thing.
Accessibility is important.
Exactly. It's a thing that people do, like, don't even think about. Most people don't even notice that they're subtitled, but it's like that makes such a huge difference for people who need that to be like, wow, you thought about that and I didn't have to like fucking ask a million times is again, I'm confused. I'm confused about how good you are at this. It's so weird.
Uh,
uh, Bizarre, but whatever. This is a pro Pritzker podcast, I guess.
fuck RBG or fuck RBG and like yay Pritzker. Oh, whatever. While we're like laughing through our tears or whatever, let's move on to the rave situation. Let's cleanse our palates a little bit. I feel like we talked about it for 40 minutes.
Yeah.
I think we got our point across. We'll probably continue to talk about it. So if you are like politics not for me, podcast not for you. What is your rave?
Politics
And
not for
is
me.
it
Congratulations on being white, I guess.
yeah, right? Is your rave just your baby?
I mean, yeah, my baby's pretty great. I'm really excited that he's very healthy. He's growing a lot. He has, other than the little squiggling that he was doing where he was like, fuck podcasting, he's been
Oh,
sleeping
he
very
hates
peacefully through his, oh my,
extracts for sure.
that's what I was gonna say. My rave is actually extracts. We took 4 months off of recording because, you know, I was pregnant and I had to be on maternity leave and basically tied to a baby all day, every fucking day. To briefly return to being forced birth, also like if you have to breastfeed or like if your child can't immediately go up for adoption and like you're breastfeeding for part of that, breastfeeding sucks. It's really fucking hard. It's presented as this like it's just intrinsic and your body just knows what to do.
And
It's
like
not
a magical way to bond with your baby.
I do not feel that way. So many women are like, but isn't it great? You get the skin to skin contact. And it's like, no, I hate it. I fucking hate breastfeeding.
Get this baby away from me.
Like, he was on a breastfeeding strike for like a week and a half. And I was like, I'm having a lot of mixed emotions. This is really hard, but also like, if you just do this forever, at least now I know. I can just deal with this.
So funny.
Anyway, so now after having been able to like finish that, we recorded our last 3 episodes of the season 2 of Extracts, and it was so much fun. Like our last recording was a little hard because I had Jean there, and it was like, sorry, Bobby, specifically.
It gets really hot in our studio, and so the baby was like,
so hot in there. Yeah, I like fed him, and he was like, I'm hot. I'm just gonna throw up everywhere as a protest to the fact that it's so fucking hot in here. Which was rough because I forgot to bring a change of clothes, which is on me. I should have really known to have
to
done
be
that.
fair, you brought a change of clothes for him at least. So
yes, so he was fine.
Also,
I
why
was
didn't
just
you
covered
just
in puke.
ask for clothes? In retrospect, you could have just been like, "Can I have some leggings and a sweatshirt?" And I like would have just walked upstairs and got you.
I know. I like didn't even think about it. Part of it was that I had to keep pumping, and so I was like, "Well, I'm in like a breastfeeding shirt, and so it's easier to do it in this instead of having to like take my whole top off in order to do it." Not that you and Bobby would have given a shit, but like
I
in my
see your
brain,
tits
I'm like,
a lot.
I know, right? We work at a burlesque company together. Nobody fucking cares.
We also were roommates, and I've also known you since I was 16. I've seen your tits plenty of times.
Yeah, we were actors backstage before we did burlesque. So. I know. I like didn't even
and
think about
neither
it.
of us have ever had any shred of modesty.
No,
truly.
not even a little bit. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't even think about it. It was just, as soon as I left, I sort of thought about it and was like, yeah, I probably could have changed out of these puke clothes, but whatever. It's fine. This is just my life now. I just live in my child's puke, I guess.
Yeah.
Hooray. But it was so, like, the first time, the third to last and second to last episodes that we recorded, Invaders, which is out now, and Horrible Bosses, which is the next episode that'll be coming out.
Daddy.
Stella finally gets her Skinner back.
It is undies.
Yes, that's why I picked that episode. I knew that you'd like it, and you went the whole season without any Skinner. Basically, there was very little, so I was thinking of your well-being.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
But I didn't have Gene that day. Michael had him the whole day, and so it was nice to just go be a person again and be like, I forgot how much I enjoyed doing this and how much fun Extracts is, and like I was the only one drinking that day because I was like, I don't have a child and I can just pump and dump basically, and was like, I'm gonna have 3 Trulies and I'm gonna feel amazing.
Hell yeah.
But it was nice to feel like I could just feel relaxed. I can feel like a person instead of just a mom. I can feel like I'm being productive in a way that doesn't just have to be tied to my child. Like, it was so nice. And it's like we have we have our wrap-up episode to do for this season, but then we like basically have to immediately start recording season 3 because we took this big long break, which
And
is
we have
like
to do all of our bonus episodes where I make you watch a bunch of Star Trek
yes, and also
movies.
you're watching the rest of season 2 of the X-Files, and we're gonna figure
Season
out
2 is wild.
yeah, I know. It doesn't stop.
Chernobyl poop monster Aaron.
I know. I've seen them all many times. It's wild. That's not even the most wild monster.
It is wild that the X-Files gets reopened because of a Chernobyl poop monster, though.
Again, they were like, no one wants to do this. Just give it to Mulder. He'll be so excited.
He wasn't, though. He was mad.
Well, yes.
Because it was
But
a literal
secretly.
shit monster.
But yeah, I had so much fun doing extracts. I'm so glad that we have like started to do this again. I'm glad that I have a husband who's like, yeah, let's figure out a way that you can do this. When he picked me up after our last recording where I had Gene, I was like, yeah, he fucking hates podcasting. Gene does not like to podcast. And Michael was like, well, at least we tried. We'll figure it out next time. I'll make sure that we're here. We'll figure it out. Like, and when it's not baseball season, that will also help where like that is the reason Michael can't take him most of the time. But then the other day he was like, I can just take him to the baseball game with me. And I was like, oh, yeah, you should do that.
Well, he could also like come and hang out with Nick, and Nick and him can hang out with the baby and watch like sports and shit, or like be dudes and then like whatever.
Right, exactly. We can like figure it out. But yeah, it was I'm really glad that we have started recording again. I'm really glad that it was like nice to do the homework. It was funny because the first 2 episodes we were originally going to record before I went on maternity leave, but because of a bunch of like COVID scares, we wound up not doing that. But I had already done that homework. And so it was nice to show up to recording and be like, I haven't read this in 4 months. I have no idea what I wrote. It's a surprise for everybody. But then for our last episode, the failed spinoff one, it was like fun to do the homework again. It was fun to like sit down and like do research and like again do something that wasn't just research about a baby. It was nice to feel like, oh yeah, I'm a person again. So that's my rave. I'm really glad that we do extracts. I'm really glad that we started recording it again, and I'm looking forward to doing season 3. Yeah, and we did some unofficial channels finally.
Woof, we did some unofficial channels.
At least Gene watched that. Didn't make a single noise. Watched that whole fucking awful episode. It was like, what is happening here?
Gene loves the Birds of Prey television TV show.
He liked Star Trek TOS. He very calmly sat and watched that episode. He seemed to enjoy it. It's colorful. That's why.
Yeah.
He's a baby. All he sees is colors.
What a dumb idiot.
Yeah. I mean, his intelligence level is about matched for the Bird of Prey series. So, you know. Makes sense that I liked it.
It's made for 3-month-olds.
Right, exactly. What is your rave?
My rave is the Heartstopper graphic novel series that was turned into the cutest, most perfect Netflix show. For those of you who don't know, Heartstopper it started as a webtoon and then it got put into physical comic books or trades, whatever. It's a story about high schoolers in the UK. One of them is gay. He was like outed against his will, and then he starts to like fall in love with a straight boy, but is the boy actually straight? And it's a lot about identity and what it's like to come out, whether you're lesbian or trans or bi or gay in high school. And then in the later volumes, it's about like real shit that you deal with in high school and in life, like bad divorces, eating disorders, like falling out of friendships, things like that. But it's written in a way that's like so sweet and not traumatic. Because, you know, a lot of times when people are like, oh, there's like great queer representation in this book or this movie, let me show you this really traumatic coming out story.
It's all trauma porn, yeah.
Right. And this deals with an eating disorder. Let's talk about it in like a really intense way that is actually isolating to the people who experience those things in real life. Whereas while I was reading this, a lot of like one of the main characters is bisexual and like goes through this whole thing. And like, obviously I've talked about my struggles with like realizing that I was bi and like my internalized biphobia, blah, blah, blah. And so like reading it, and not feeling isolated by it, but also feeling very like, I don't know, it just does a really good job of dealing with heavy topics whilst being a really sweet story and low stakes story. Like I read the whole series in like a day and was like, I wish I had this in high school. And I wish so many of my friends had this in high school. And then to have it get turned into a Netflix series that's a damn near perfect adaptation. Like they change a few things and they like switch out some characters for I think really good reasons. And they up the drama a little bit because like I said, the graphics are really low stakes, like in a comforting way, but like it would be probably boring as a TV show. But it was just such a solid adaptation. Like, I was having a shitty day and I came home and I was like, it's Heartstopper day. And I like rolled myself up into a blanket and was like in my bed watching it and just going, oh, it's so sweet. And like Nick came in halfway through the first episode and was like, what's this? And I was like, it's just the sweetest show. And then he was like, this is great. Let's watch it. So we just like binged this like sweet gay teen show. And both of us were like, it's so sweet.
That's so cute.
Yeah. And just like in this world of like shit, and also we're like, LGBT rights are being constantly challenged in this country, and like there are going to be like a lot of queer kids that are afraid to come out because of things that are happening. Like it's 1 step forward, 8 steps back, it feels like right now. Like I think media like this is really, really important.
Mm-hmm.
The Chicago Public Library has a lot of copies. The Chicago Public Library, also here's part of my rave, has a fucking excellent YA graphic novel selection.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are a young teen or no young teen or just like YA graphic novels, like they have a rock solid YA graphic novel selection. Like
mm-hmm.
love the library.
Love the library. Support your local libraries.
Support your local libraries and support your local librarians too.
Mm-hmm.
Like being a librarian is very hard, especially when the world is falling apart, because it is a sanctuary for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Anyways, that's a different rant. Yeah, that it was just like a nice, bright little spot. And also as somebody who is currently struggling with like Star Trek Strange New Worlds came out. I love a lot about it, but a lot of it is also being like really challenging me and challenging my like fandom in a way, and adaptation and like struggling like how do you deal with like a new adaptation from a thing that you really love. It was just really nice to be like, this is a great adaptation, no notes.
I'd love to have no notes.
Yeah.
Contrary to what people might think about from this podcast, I'd love to have no notes.
I want to have no notes. I just unfortunately have a lot of notes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I will say too, if you're, because I work with somebody who is younger lesbian, and she lives with other like lesbians, and they like tried to watch it, and in the first episode they were like, we don't really want to watch a story about like two like homosexual boys, like it's not really what we're into, which is fair. I was like, give it more, because there's actually a really well developed, interesting lesbian relationship. There's a trans girl in it, and like their story of like who they fall in love with. There's some older gay teachers. Like it is really, even though the main focus is Charlie and Nick, there are a lot of really well developed side characters, and it is very traditional queer media where it's like a good found family, but everybody is really fleshed out or is set up to be like fleshed out in further seasons. So even if you're not like, and also it's a teen show. Like the most they do is like kiss. It's not like a gross like pervert thing. They're just like holding hands and like looking longingly in each other's eyes, and it's sweet as shit.
That's cute.
Yeah. So Heartstopper, recommend it very much. Also, Extracts is great.
Speaking of found families, Extracts.
So obviously, you might be listening and being like, well, I tuned in for the books, not the abortions. Well, good for you, because we're going to talk about books now.
Yay!
We haven't recorded in months, which means Aaron and I have read
like 100 books.
Lots of books. So we've
decided...
That's a
slight exaggeration, but I mean, combined, it's probably pretty fucking close, actually.
Well, I've been reading lots and lots of graphic novels, so I actually have read, like, if we count those, I've read over 100 books. So
Jesus Christ.
Let's just talk about our favorites, the ones that were like, hell yeah, I want to talk about this. Let's go one for one. You do one and I'll do one.
Okay, we'll go through and let's just do the best ones. We won't be constrained by numbers.
Yeah, we refuse to be constrained by math.
Fuck math. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't check what were the last books we talked about, so I might be like, I already talked about this. I'm gonna fucking talk about it again.
I know what I was reading when I was in the hospital giving birth, and so I was like, everything after this is fair game, I think. If I didn't talk about the sequel to Thursday Murder Club, that we should just include that. Thursday Murder Club and The Man Who Died Twice, both excellent. You should read both of those. They're really
A
fucking good.
really solid follow-up.
Yes. Really, really, I'm really excited for the third one.
Oh, me too.
So the first one that I read, that I listened to, which I highly recommend listening to the audiobook for this one, is called As You Wish, and it's about the making of The Princess Bride, and it's written by Carey Elwes and Joe Layden. But the audiobook is particularly good because all of the interviews and like quips that they got from other people in the cast are for the most part recorded by those same people for the audiobook. There's only like 2 people who didn't do it.
Because they're
It
dead?
was, well, most of them are dead, and one of them was Mandy Patinkin, who probably is fucking busy, and so
Yeah, Mandy Patinkin's like, I'm literally like one of the biggest stars. I have a lot of singing to do.
I have a lot of singing to do. I can't come do audiobooks. Like, although I will say, Billy Crystal clearly did not go to the studio. He just recorded it on, I'm guessing a potato, but probably his cell phone, and sent it in, and then they just put those into the audiobook. So it's hilarious to hear this like massive drop in quality while Billy Crystal's like, here I am from beyond the grave talking about this fucking movie. But it was so good. I love Princess Bride. It's one of my favorite movies. It's also a great book. If you've never read the book, I highly recommend it, by William Goldman. But it's the making of the movie was so charming, and it's about a found family. That's essentially what the movie and the making of the movie is about these people who this movie kind of never should have happened. It's kind of a miracle that it did, that it got the funding that it did. It wasn't particularly popular when it came out, and then like immediately became a cult following movie. And the way that the cast has remained friends for like the 30 plus years after that is really so charming. And they are so supportive of each other. Everyone is like, this was the greatest experience of my life. I'm so glad that I did this movie. I feel so lucky to have met all of these people, and hearing them all talk about it is just so delightful. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great listening experience. And mostly what I took from it too is that everyone loved Andre the Giant and found him absolutely delightful to work with. And hearing oh my god, I'm totally blanking on his name. The guy who plays Vizzini, Wallace Shawn, talking about how someone told him before he got cast that they wanted Danny DeVito to play the part of Vizzini.
Oh.
Yeah. And so he was convinced the whole time, any day now I'm going to be fired and they're going to replace me with Danny DeVito. And so he played the whole time like, how would I play this character? But how would Danny DeVito play this character? And then like went for like a middle point in between that. So like every single one of Wallace Shawn's stories is about like, is today the day I get fired and Danny DeVito replaces me in this movie? Which I just found delightful. Like as someone who used to be an actor who like that hangs over your head of like, am I fucking up? Am I gonna get fired from this project? Are they gonna replace me with Danny DeVito? It just feels like the most hilarious thing to be worried about. But I just found it very, very delightful. So As You Wish by Carey Elwes, highly recommended the audiobook.
I have 6, 3 books, 3 comics or trades or whatever. So I'm going to go back and forth. So my first one, this comic is so good. It's Nightwing by Tom Taylor with art by Bruno Redondo. It starts off, it's like issue like 83 or something. I don't know. You can truly jump into the Tom Taylor run. You do not have to read the rest of the shit. Like, it is so good. It is truly one of the best superhero comics I have ever read. It is, when I get that issue or like the new issues now, it is the first thing I read. Like, it does not go into my doom piles. I'm like all about it. It's so good. It follows Nightwing, who is back in Bloodhaven. Spoiler, I guess, Alfred is super dead. But Alfred left him a bunch of money and was like, I trust you with this money. I know you'll do something good with it. And so he starts investing in his community and buying up property and stuff. And so he makes himself, Dick Grayson, a target for enemies, but also is Nightwing and has to like deal with being a superhero kind of in both realities, and then also how his friends like Babs and the Flash and stuff come to his aid. And it's just really good. I cried. The first volume is called like Leaping into Light. I cried like 4 times, like because of the emotional resonance, but like I literally cried at the end as I was closing it being like, that was such a good comic book. It was just so good. And then the art is really good. Bruno Redondo's art is really, really good. And also, like, there's a crossover with Superman, Son of Kal-El, which is a newer Superman comic because Superman is like off in space or like dying in the Justice League. I don't know, whatever. But so his son is the main Earth superhero right now, and his son is going through, like, he's a teenager going through regular identity stuff. He's also like the son of Superman and has to like live up to the mantle of Superman, but also is a younger generation and wants to like deal with climate change and stuff, and is also fucking openly bisexual. Like,
Yeah.
the art in that one isn't my favorite. But the story is really good, and there's a really, really lovely crossover with Nightwing, because Tom Taylor also is writing the Superman Son of Kal-El. They're both so good. I recommend reading both of them, but if you're only going to read one, I would read the Nightwing one, especially if you're like, I don't really understand superhero comics. Like, why do people like this? This is a very good entry-level superhero comic. And if you love Nightwing or love Teen Titans or love superhero bullshit, like, it is just chef kiss, like, such a fucking good comic book. Ugh, it's so good. I cannot recommend it enough.
I'm excited to be excited about reading comics again. I feel
Hell
like
yeah.
I go through cycles where I'm like, I'm going to read a million graphic novels all in a row again, because Chicago Public Library just, in addition to great YA public or graphic novels, they just have a truly incredible graphic novel selection throughout the entire library system.
Yeah.
But also at my second branch, not the one that's closest to me anymore, but the one that used to be my home branch, Seltzer Regional Library, a truly amazing selection of just walking off the street comics. But like, you can request so many good things from Chicago Public Library graphic novel wise, so I'm excited to be excited about doing that again. I can feel that
Yay.
that's coming.
Also, like, I'm right back in it now because I'm back working at Challengers. I'm reading most of the stuff I'm reading right now is comics, and I'm reading a huge array, not just superheroes. So if you need some Rex, your girl's got them.
Yes. Yeah, it's funny because I feel like I don't really read a lot of current stuff unless you recommend stuff to me, and then like 6 months later I'm like, I remember Stella told me about this thing.
Yeah.
I read a lot of like really weird independent stuff from like the early 2000s. It's fun. I
Hey.
love Jeff Lemire. All of his series I
Oh,
think are
if
really
you
good.
want some new Jeff Lemire, there's some good stuff coming out, but whatever.
Yeah. All right.
We'll talk about that off air.
We'll talk about that. Okay. All right, my next one, I also listened to this as an audiobook. I think it would be a really good read, but I recommended the audiobook because Bob Odenkirk narrates it himself. It's Bob Odenkirk's new book, Comedy, Comedy, Comedy Drama. It's really good. We talked last year about like neither of us really listen to a ton of memoirs or read a ton of memoirs. I've been reading a lot of memoirs. I think they're like it's easy entry level. It's like,
Well, it's also nice when the audiobooks are narrated by the people who wrote them.
right, exactly. And
It
so
makes a huge difference.
it does, and like you literally get their voice, both in their actual voice, but like their writer's voice is very specific a lot of the time, and it just translates to their own voice in a way that is really appealing. Like, Bob Odenkirk has a very specific voice and cadence, and so listening to him read his own story like really I think helps with that. But I just thought it was so, like, I love Bob Odenkirk. I think he seems like truly a genuinely very nice man, and he seems like a really good dude. And listening, and like, he's from Chicago, and listening to his story about how he like got into comedy and what it's like to put your whole life into comedy, and then all of a sudden you look around and you're like a drama and action star like
Yeah.
in your 50s. It was just so interesting, and it was so charming, and like, I just really enjoyed it. And I think if you know literally nothing about Bob Odenkirk other than that guy from Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, like, I think it's a really great introduction into all of the work he's done in comedy before this, because truly most of his career is in comedy. It was just so cool. And like, there's stuff that I was surprised I didn't know. Like, he's one of the reasons that Tim and Eric Awesome Show Great Job happened. Like, he was the
Really?
person, yeah, he was the one that like really sold that to Comedy Central. And he's the voice that does the Great Job interlude, which, like, as soon as I heard that, I was like, duh.
Yeah.
Obviously that's Bob Odenkirk. But it like never even occurred to me. And then as soon as he said it in the book, I was like, oh yeah, duh. And hearing the way like he tells a great story about the way I don't remember if it was Tim or Eric, one of them sent him like a comedy packet. Basically, he like cold sent him this comedy packet that was super fucking weird, and he opened it and was like, these two are geniuses. This shit is gonna be amazing. And hearing a comedy genius talk about what it's like to recognize the next generation of comedy geniuses was amazing. I really, really enjoyed it. So comedy drama, highly recommend it. Highly recommend the audiobook.
Okay, so the next one I listened to, I'll just go kind of with like, it's not quite a memoir. It's like part memoir, part essays. It was Trick Mirror by Jia Tolentino. I read part of it and I listened to a part of it. She narrates it, so that makes a huge difference. It is just a collection of essays from just truly one of the best, like, I guess culture critics, but not necessarily just pop culture. Like, it's just like culture in general. They're very good. She's really good about writing opinions and perspective with really good research, but then also interrogating her own opinion while writing it. So it's never preachy. She does some really fun stuff where like she was on a MTV reality TV show and she was like a teenager, so she, like, interrogates what that is like. She
Interesting.
does a really, the closing one is about her feelings about getting married and the wedding industry because she grew up in the South and went to school in the South, so she has, like, a lot of interesting, feelings about being raised in the church and then being surrounded by, like, while she is liberal and, like, a lot of her friends are, they still come from this very traditional background. And so something like marriage is something that's viewed as like this big tradition that you have to do, even though a lot of what we consider quote unquote traditions are stuff that was made up in like the 1930s and stuff. So she really
Mhm.
interrogates that. Like that was really interesting. But the one that the two that I think people would know the most, there's one called like I is for Internet or something. And that's one that's like college kids now read because it's like interrogating our relationship with the internet and things like that. So that's, like, I think her famous one, but she wrote one called 7 Scams That Made America. It is so disheartening to listen to, but it's also, like, so fascinating, and she does such a good job researching everything, but making it really palatable, so, like, while you're listening to it, you're like, "Wow, this is scary and terrible, and I hate our culture and society," but also, like, it doesn't totally make me wanna throw myself into a ditch because the way that she writes it, it's like shining a light on it to be like, so let's be aware of all of this stuff so that while we exist in this culture, we have this awareness so maybe we can make better choices. But it's
Mhm.
not also like it's not doom and gloom, but it is also doom and gloom, but in like an
Right.
accessible way. I don't know if that makes any sense. She's very good, and I would recommend this book a lot. This is one that, like, a friend loaned me the book, and then I also got the audiobook from the library, so I was, like, kind of doing both, but then I bought my own copy because I was like, "This is something that I just wanna have in my house."
Nice.
I highly recommend it.
I just added it to my audiobook wish list, so I'll have to get that later. That sounds really good. All right, my next one, we read this for our super exclusive book club. We're going to talk about this more later, so I don't want to go super into it, but I picked this because I literally pulled it off of a shelf in like a used bookstore a decade and a half ago. It's called The Expendables. It's by Antonya Nelson. No, it's not about old men who do action. That's a totally different thing. Do I love old people doing action? Yes. Is this the same thing? No, it is not.
No, it is very much not.
Very much not. The Expendables is a series of short stories. I've been reading a lot of short stories, which I also there's that like meme, that like literary meme going around about like uh, good morning to only to the English teachers who woke up today and were like, I'm going to assign a story that is so unsettling it sticks with them for the rest of their lives. And people were talking about their favorite short stories. So I also requested a bunch of short story books from the library. So I'm just
Traumatizing
like
short stories,
I
nice.
I corrected collect I requested the complete collection of Bradbury short stories, so I'm about to fuck myself up.
Yeah, his is one of the ones that meme went around. I was like, "Oh, yeah, the one where the girl lives on Venus and can't see the sun because they shove her in a closet."
Yep, yeah. That's his short story collection, the complete collection is like over 1,000 pages. And I was like, I'm just gonna have to slowly pick through this, I
Yeah.
guess. I picked it up and was like, this is a tome. This is like an actual tome. So I'm very excited to read that. But The Expendables is so good. It's a short story collection about very specifically about relationships and about marriage but it's not like you'd think. It's about a lot of different kinds of marriage, and a lot of them are from different views of either one person inside of a marriage who has either gotten divorced or should never have gotten married. There's one about a person who's literally getting married on that day who probably shouldn't be getting married. Like there are there's just such a wide variety of relationships that these stories are written about. It was so good. Antonia's writing is incredible. It's I'd never heard of her. I literally pulled this book off of a shelf in a used bookstore a decade and a half ago, and I I've never read anything else by her.
She hasn't
It
published a lot.
No, and it's just so good. Like if you can find a copy of the Expendables, I highly recommend it. It was just her writing is amazing, and her
And each
characterizations are
story is
oh,
so different. That's the thing. I've read
yes.
like a half of it at this point. When you hear, like, "Oh, this is short stories about marriage," you have an idea in your head, you are wrong.
Yeah, they're all completely different. I will say this is a little bit of a spoiler for you, but more about
I
structure
don't
than
care.
about the actual content. There are two stories that are related that follow similar characters, but at different times in their lives that are like the last two stories are like that. It's two people who are married, and then the follow-up story to that is their son-in-law who's married to their daughter, and so it's
Interesting.
from his perspective, and the first one is from the mother's perspective, so you get her first person perspective about something that's happened in their marriage, and then like 3 years later her son-in-law's perspective when they like come to visit them with his wife. So good. Even those two are so different because you're looking at two different types of marriages and two different types of people at different stages in their marriages. It was just so good. I cannot recommend it enough. And again, for something that I like, this looks interesting. I'll just pull this off a shelf and keep it on my bookshelf and move with it 6 fucking times and then pull it off for our book club. Like, I'm so glad that I picked it. It's just such a great short story collection, and it was printed in like the 80s. Like
Oh,
it,
yeah,
and
it's weird looking.
it's weird looking, and it's also like wildly timeless. It is so strange that it was printed like 30 years ago, and all of it is none of it feels dated, which is truly an accomplishment in writing. So I really highly recommend it.
The next one that I'm gonna recommend is another comic series. I guess it would be considered YA, but it kind of falls in that middle, like, it's, like, almost not YA, but I don't know. It's called Fence by C.S. Pacat and art by Johanna the Mad. It follows a, kid who he's the, like, bastard son, essentially, of, like, one of the world's most famous fencers, so, like, in order to, I guess, like, try and relate to his dad or whatever, he starts fencing. He's, really, really fast, but has, like, sloppy technique, but he gets into, like, a fencing school, or a school with, like, a good fencing team, and then, of course, he's got a rival who is, like, a very uptight, like, he essentially was, like, the best fencer in their division, except for he, like, chokes at, like, a big competition, so then he becomes, like, the 2nd best, and then the actual best is the legitimate child of the, world's
Mm,
best fencer. So they end up at this school and they have this like rivalry, but it's also kind of like an enemies to lovers type situation. Like it's not explicit, but it's like it's getting there. And then there's other like side relationships and stuff too. But it's just fencing's fucking cool. I have
yeah, it
been
is.
watching actually like a lot of like actual fencing. I'm a big fan of Harvard's fencing team. They're my favorite fencing team. No big deal. Uh it's really fascinating. There's really good side characters. The art is just, like, very clean and, like, just bright colors, clean lines, very straightforward. The story is really great. I cannot wait for the next volume to come out. I think volume 5 comes out in the fall. And also, I was reading it and, like, halfway through, I was like, "Man, I'm fucking really loving this." And then I was like, "Oh, this is I don't think the intention is Spurk AU," but I was like, "Oh, that
I
one is Spock."
literally I literally thought that's what you were gonna say, is that it was
Yeah.
Spurk. Like that's exactly what it
Yeah.
sounds like.
I was like, "That one is Spock and that one is Kirk." Oh, okay, yeah, that's why I really, really love it. But it's also I've read books and stuff before where I was like, "Oh, this is a disguised Kirk A or Spurk AU. That's fine, whatever." This one I don't think was intentional, but, like, even the, like, grumpy one is kinda drawn in a way where you're like, "Yeah, he kinda looks like Spock too." But it's got really good, like, diversity in it. it's at an all boys school, but like one of the members of the fencing team is I'm not totally sure if they're trans or if they're like non-binary, but like they present themselves more feminine and nobody gives them shit about it. Like it's really good. If you are into like sports mangas or slice of life comic type stuff, if you liked Check Please, you would probably like this. I think Fence is a lot better than Check Please. Check Please I thought was fine. But Fence is just it's so good. And there's 2 novelizations that I haven't had a chance to read yet, but I love it. If you like Star Trek and like fencing, you'll probably like this.
That's adorable. That's really funny.
I love it. Also, real fencing is cool, and Harvard's fencing team bucks. So,
fair enough. My next one is The Souvenir Museum by Elizabeth McCracken. This is another short story collection. This was actually nominated for the National Book Award, I want to say 2 years ago. It was either 2020 or 2021. It's so fucking good. It's like The Expendables if it was written in the 2020s. Like, it's about relationships and about these characters who are going through really specific times in their lives. But this one has, which I didn't realize until like halfway through the book, this has there are 2 characters, Jack and Sadie, who like every other story is about them throughout their lives, and it's really clear that she wrote one of the last stories first and then expanded on these characters through these other stories, but then they're mostly chronological. The way that they're in this collection, except for one like flashback about Jack as a kid, they're basically chronological through this couple's life, and they're together for like 25 years, and so you get this like really long sense of what it's like to be these 2 people in a relationship. And then in between those is a bunch of other stories about relationships, and it's so good. Her writing is excellent. It's very funny in a way that I like was not expecting, but it's also very clever, and it focuses a lot on parts of relationships that I like wasn't expecting. I just really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. Also, the cover is a balloon animal of a dog, and it's really cute. And like I physically read this. This is like an actual hard book that I read and was like, I love this. I took this on vacation with me. I just really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. And it was one of those things that I was reading it while I was also going through all those short story memes, and I was like, yeah, this is the wave that I'm in right now. I fucking love short stories. I've forgotten how much I love short stories, and so it felt really nice to be like, also contemporary short stories are really fucking good, and there's a lot of really great short story writers out there today, and
yeah.
I love Elizabeth McCracken's style. I will read whatever she publishes next. That's how much I like this book.
Oh,
So
I'm excited. I just put it on my list because that sounds really good. Also, just like a blanket recommendation, if you are in the mood for paranormal or horror short stories, Kelly Link writes really good short stories. They're very like weird magical realism, like otherworldly, whatever. It's like this is really, really a really boilerplate thing to say and like maybe isn't fair, but it's kind of like what if Neil Gaiman was a woman writing today kind of vibes. And then Joe Hill actually writes really good short stories too.
yeah. Also, Andy Weir does. I read a collection of his short stories called The Egg and Other Stories, which was really good. It didn't quite meet my like top books that I read was while I was on maternity leave, but it was really good. And there were a couple of them in there that I was like, damn, that was really fucking good. So, I mean, Andy Weir, we've talked about how much we like his writing, so I would also recommend that for short stories. Do you
So
have any
I
more?
read, yeah, I have 3
Okay.
more.
Okay.
I read The Death of Jane Lawrence by Caitlin Starling. This was a physical book I read. It fucks. It's so good. If
I'm
you
reading it
liked,
right now. It's really good.
oh, it's so good. It's in this wave of like modern readers writing gothic stories.
Mhm.
So it is a classic gothic story of like woman marries a mysterious man and then his house is maybe haunted and full of bullshit. But a thing that's like kind of a spoiler, but not really. But she's like an accountant, like she's really good at math, and the way she approaches magic is through the utilization of her math skills, and it's fucking cool as shit. And honestly, there's some parts that were actually pretty scary, and while I'm reading physically or listening to audiobooks, I actually don't get scared in the same way that I do when I'm, like, watching movies and stuff, but there was a moment the way my house is set up, my couch isn't against a wall, and behind us, there is our like, basement it's our both of our staircases are behind us, and I was, like, reading it at night, and I kept, like, looking over my shoulder, like, into the basement staircase, and I was like, I don't think I can fucking read this right now. I'm like really scared because there's like, it's a Victorian thing, so I'm not gonna like really spoil anything, but there's a point where she gets like trapped in the fucking haunted house and crazy, scary shit happens. And I was like, it's like 3 a.m. and I'm spooked. I have to put this book down. But if you like magic and Victorian shit and a good female protagonist and math, I would highly fucking recommend it. It's really good. Also, the reason I picked it up is because it has one of the best covers that's
It's
been
so
released.
good.
It's the fucking dopest cover. Do yourself a favor and just look at this cover. It's dope as shit.
Yeah, it rules. I'm really glad that you recommended this and that we've like added this to our book club reading list because I'm really enjoying it. I'm like 70 pages into it. I'm really
It's
enjoying
so
it.
good.
It's really fucking good. Her writing is excellent. I really like it feels very gothic horror, but I also like that it's accessible. It doesn't
Right.
feel like I've got to like mine my way through gothic writing. Like I
It's
love
very similar
Mexican.
to like Mexican Gothic, I thought.
Yeah, I was gonna say I really love Mexican Gothic, but I think that she embraced some of that like writing style of traditional Gothic writing in a way that I thought
Yeah.
was very appropriate and really worked for that book. But now reading this, I feel like, oh, this is how you do that, but you like update that language a little bit more. And
Yeah,
so I
that's
feel
fair.
like I'm really enjoying that. Again, not to say I didn't enjoy Mexican Gothic. It was fucking great. I highly
Yeah.
recommend it.
I
I
want
just
more
think that
math magic.
yeah, I just am really enjoying this. And like I like this because it feels like this main character is more competent. Like the main
Yeah.
character in Mexican Gothic is pretty competent. Like that's what makes
But she's also a
her
socialite, right? Like that was her whole
right.
deal is that she's like kind of a flippant socialite that like has to deal with like, oh, there's some real world shit. Whereas this girl is
Right.
like very practical, like I lived through
Yeah.
trauma, I love math, I'm getting married for practical reasons. Oh
Right.
no, I'm in a haunted house.
Yes. Yeah, I'm really enjoying that. It's really fucking good. Related to that, my next one is you recommended this, but I just want to underscore this. Monster She Wrote by Lisa Kroger and Melanie
Yeah.
R. Anderson. I just listened to this. It's fucking great. It's about the women who pioneered horror and speculative fiction writing. Every chapter is about a new person and about like it's broken into 8 different parts about like gothic
It's
horror
like
writing, monster writing,
generation.
and yeah.
Yeah. It's
Like
like the big sections are like generations and like waves of time, and then each chapter is like focusing on a new
and the
author.
people inside of that who like made those who pioneered those specific types of generations, so you're also like moving contemporarily through time up until the present. So fucking good. It was so good. There were a couple of people that there were chapters on them that I was like, oh, I never would have considered this person a horror writer or like a speculative fiction writer, like Karen Russell who wrote Swamplandia. I got to that one and I was like, oh yeah, duh, of course she would
Mhm.
be. Like Swamplandia is a fucking bizarre book. It's one of the weirdest books I've ever read, but I can totally see how her writing fits into the speculative fiction genre, and like I really enjoyed that. Of course, there was a chapter about the woman who wrote Fingersmith, and I was like, I'm gonna beat my brains out. But
Look, we are in a minority. We are a vocal minority.
we picked
Fingersmith
the
is terrible.
we picked the worst of her books, is what it feels like. Like that feels like the absolute worst book she's ever
Except for
written,
people
and
love that book.
yeah, well, people are wrong. It's not a good book.
People are wrong. That book
People
sucks.
are not
You're
good.
a pearl. You're a
Oh
pearl.
God. We can never speak of it again. But Mantra She Wrote was great, and it's narrated by Aaron Bennett, who narrated another book that I listened to called Unfuck Your Anger, which was fine. It was whatever. It's part of a larger series written by a psychologist that I the reason I really liked Aaron Bennett is because I tried to listen to the original one in those series called Unfuck Your Brain, which is about dealing with like trauma and anxiety, but it's read by the narrator who literally sounds like she recorded it in a bathroom, and it was unlistenable. I literally could not get through it. So I was like, all right, well, I already have Unfuck Your Anger downloaded. It's by a like professional reader who was Aaron Bennett, and I liked her narration of it so much that I continued listening to it, even though I was like, this book is kind of mid, it's whatever. But then when I realized she was the one who narrated Murder She Wrote or Monster She Wrote, I was like, oh yes, absolutely, I'm into this. So I really like Erin Bennett. I think she's a really fantastic narrator, and I think that she really does justice to this book. And she has such a strong voice that I
Yeah.
think that she does such a great job of emphasizing how important each of these women are in a way that like she like it's hard to read a reading list. It's hard to read through like a here's a reading list, here's your must not be missed, here's some things like that you because that's at the end of every single section are here's the must reads for each of these
Right.
people, and then like
If this sounds interesting, here's the one book you should read by them.
right, and then here's a couple of other recommendations that's that's related to this person, and then here's some related fiction by other authors that are like in this style or of this time. And she does such a good job of reading through all of those at the end of every chapter. It was like the thing I was looking forward to at the end of every chapter, which is like wild. It's wild to be like, yes, narrator, read a list to me. I love a list.
That's
So
a
I
book that
highly
I
recommend it.
listened to and then bought because I was like, I
Mhm.
loved listening to it. It made me like, it is, she does read lists really well. She gives good history lessons essentially. And then I
Mhm.
was like, I want to have this physical book so that when I'm like, hey, I'm feeling like I want to read a lady horror book, I could just go to
Right.
that book and be like, sure, this one.
Yes, and I'm glad that you own it so that I can be like, "Hey, could you go to this chapter and, tell me what
Yeah.
these books are, please? Take a picture of it for me."
My next one is comic series. It's Daredevils, run by Chip Zdarsky with art by Marco Checchetto. It's a 36 issue run, and then it's followed by a Marvel event called Devil's Reign, and then the new comic I think is going to start up next month. Whatever. This fucks. It's so good. Oh my god. It's so good. Daredevil is a superhero who I love anyways. I love religious bullshit. Like I'm not a religious character, right? But I like love religious bullshit. And Daredevil's really fascinating because he is this person who is like, I am a super deeply religious person, but I'm also somebody who dresses like a devil and beats the shit out of people. Like, how do I deal with that? Like, that's his whole like inner monologue. And this is such a good series of him really trying to grapple with that. Like, I go to jail? Am I actually a real like Catholic? What is good? What is evil? Is violence a justifiable answer? Do the ends, justify the or yeah, do the ends justify the means? Like it's just written super, super well, and his self-interrogation and how, like, his actions affect the people around him, like Elektra, and Elektra becomes Daredevil, and her costume is so fucking good. I wanna cosplay Elektra as Daredevil Woman Without Fear so hard, it's so fucking good. That whole series is just really good if you want a really introspective superhero of, like, why am I doing the things that I'm doing? Are they good actually or are we as superheroes part of the problem? Really fucking good, and the art is really, really good. And then Devil's Reign, the crossover, focuses on Wilson Fisk as mayor and him being outlawing superheroes essentially, and how that affects, like, he does it because he's pissed at Daredevil, but it affects everybody. It affects Jessica and Luke and Cap and Iron Man and the Fantastic Four. Like, this is spoiler, but like whatever. Like, Sue Storm and Mr. Fantastic go to jail. Like, it is a really fascinating. Marvel is actually doing a lot of comics about prison lately that's quite good. The Sabretooth series is a prison allegory. Like, when mutants create an island that's a quote unquote utopia, how do you deal with people who break the law? We don't have prisons here except for we do, and what do those prisons look like? Very fascinating shit actually. And the fallout of Devil's Reign is going to be really interesting. And I think, 36 issues is a lot, but it's not a crazy amount to read if you wanted to jump into a new series. I would highly, highly recommend fucking Daredevil. It's so good. And if you're gonna read Devil's Reign, I didn't read all of the crossovers. I read Woman Without Fear, obviously, and then I read the X-Men one because my brain is broken and I read every single X title. But the Devil's Reign X-Men books are really good because they follow Emma Frost, and Wilson Fisk is basically like, well, I got a lot of dirt on you, Emma. And Emma's like, bitch, you wish. And it's very good. And it's got art by Phil Noto, who I love because I really like the way he draws noses, but that's neither here nor there. So Daredevil, very fucking good. I would read it.
That's such a specific thing to be like, "I love the way this person draws
Look,
noses."
Phil Noto draws really good noses, and I just want to boop them. They're real boopable.
Adorable. I love it. I wasn't going to include this one, but because we are going one to one, I have one more that I wanted to bring up. I'd never read any James Baldwin before, and I like really wanted to read some James Baldwin, and so I found like I was like, "What's a good introduction?" I think short stories because that's like the mood that I've been in. This was kind of like what
Yes.
kicked off my short story mode. I listened to "Going to Meet the Man" by James Baldwin. It was fucking great. Like, I know James Baldwin's a great writer. I'm so
Right.
aware. That's part of why I wanted to like find an entryway to be like, I need to start reading more James Baldwin. Going to Meet the Man is such a good collection. It's one of his later collections of short stories. It came like pretty late in his career, but it is just so fucking good. And there are some stories in there, especially the last one, the titular story, Going to Meet the Man. It's about a white kid who becomes a sheriff who is super fucking racist, and
Mhm.
he is at this, like, sort of a spoiler, but this is how it starts. He's in bed with his wife and he like can't get an erection, and he's trying to figure out like, why am I so racist? And so he remembers when his parents took him to a lynching as a kid,
Holy shit.
like a KKK lynching as a kid. And then, this is an actual spoiler, gets super fucking hard about it and fucks his wife at the end of this story. And this is written by James Baldwin, a queer black man, and it's fucking nuts. It is disturbing. It is horrifying. It is, I think, kind of essential reading for people who don't really understand what community events lynchings used to be and
Yeah.
like how fucking terrifying that is. It was, the
And
whole book is,
generational trauma in a way that's
mhm,
like, well, generational trauma can also lead to people being like fucking racist or
right,
like, if you
exactly.
see something like that when you're a kid, like that is fundamental. Your brain is not formed. Your
Right.
brain
He
is
was,
forming.
yeah, he's like 4 when this happens, and his
Not
parents,
that
they,
justifies his racism. I'm just saying, what I mean?
no, exactly. It helps explain why some of this shit happens. But yeah, it's fucking terrifying. They go to a lynching, and then everyone has a picnic around the dead body. Like, it's fucked up.
Ugh.
But the rest of the short stories are also very good, and there's a lot of different viewpoints that are looked at, and a lot of it is about. There are also like connected short stories about a particular family inside of this community that's connected to the church that I thought was really interesting. It was just really good. I highly recommend it. I mean, like, obviously, pick a James Baldwin book. I've been told a million times that all of his writing is good, but I was like really glad that this is my entry into actually reading his writing. It was really fucking good. I highly recommend it. The narrator for that, I can't remember what his name was. Excellent. He was fucking great too. I looked up his work, and he's a professional audiobook narrator, which makes sense because he's excellent.
Okay, my last one is a real hard swing from that.
Oh boy, okay.
It is wildly on brand for me, but it's gonna be a real hard swing from like that. It's called The Heart of Dracula.
Wow. I'm glad we're ending
by
on this one.
Kathryn Kingsley. So I'm in a Discord for another podcast, which I would recommend. It's really fun. It's called Hard Choices, and it's a podcast where they pick a property like Lord of the Rings, and then they like rank 10 to 20 characters on their fuckability. It's really fun. But the Discord is fun and silly, and one of them is like talking about like erotic reading or whatever, and one of them was like, hey, I'm reading the story Heart of Dracula. It's really wild, but it's actually pretty good, and I found it on Audible, and I was like, whatever, the first one's free on Audible, I'll listen to it. Well, when I was first listening to it, I was like, whew, this narrator is making some bold ass choices, because the main girl is from Boston. He does a full Transylvanian accent for Dracula. One of Dracula's acolytes is French. One of Dracula's acolytes is British. One of the hunters is Italian. One of the hunters is from the South. And this dude goes hard on the accents. His name is Joel Frumpkin, but I will say he is consistent as shit. And they are actually quite good. But it is funny that the main
Love it.
girl has a Boston accent and is fucking flirting and having sex with Transylvanian Dracula.
Wow. Oh
Whatever.
boy.
The story, though, it's one of those things where, like, you talk about it, it sounds fucking stupid. It's actually super well written. It's really interesting. This woman, this is the first of her series that I've read, Kathryn Kingsley. She specializes in, like, dark erotica. But the plot is actually quite interesting and good. The characterization is good. The cover of the book is really bad. It would throw you off. The description sounds dumb, like, oh, a like psychic falls in love with Dracula. That sounds dumb. It's really fucking good though. And it is a wild ass ride as an audiobook. I don't know. I would recommend it. I fucking loved it. And it ends with like a really fucked up cliffhanger. I haven't read Curse of Dracula yet. Because I have so many priority loans from the library. But I don't know. It's very good. It sounds so dumb. You're like, James Baldwin, right? Like, essential reading. And I was like, Dracula fucks this girl in her brain. Not with just like dream sex is what I meant. Not like a skull fuck.
I mean, would I have been surprised if that's what it was? No. I wouldn't.
Heart of Dracula. I saved the most on brand for last.
Hilarious. So funny. Well, there you go. There's 3 months worth of reading from both of us.
Let's do one question to close it out.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, big stack of digital questions.
All right, pick a number between 1 and 28.
28.
All right. What's an unexpected song that always makes you cry?
Do you have an answer?
I do have an answer. It's kind of a fucked up story. It winds up being kind of funny. This is a super weird story, but the song is Carry On My Wayward Son. Yeah. So
Is this why you don't want to watch Supernatural?
maybe. There's lots of reasons. Okay, so I knew this guy. I went to high school with his brother. His brother and I had this like romance, but we never actually dated. We did a lot of theater together, high school theater romance bullshit.
Yeah.
But we were also really good friends, and we were in the tech society together. And his younger brother was really good friends with one of my really good friends' younger brother, and so I was around his younger brother a lot. I used to go camping with that family, and he would go camping with them too. So we like went camping together over several summers, and we went to a dance where we all dressed up as like Disney characters together, and I was
Very on
Tinkerbell.
brand.
I was Tinkerbell, and he was my Peter Pan. So like he and I were like weirdly close, even though he was like 4 or 5 years younger than me. And he okay, so when he got older, he moved as an adult to Alaska and started working as a like mountaineer tour guide, but also as a cartographer. He would go up into the mountains and like map out summits that hadn't been like properly mapped yet. And so he was doing that. He was coming back down from working on a summit, which I think is now called Purdy Peak because, spoiler, he died. He was coming back down the mountain and slipped and fell off of the mountain and died. But he was wearing a GoPro at the time and was singing Carry On My Wayward Son and like bouncing around the mountain literally right before he died. And his brother made a video as a memorial to him and like posted part of that video from right before he died of singing that. And so every time I hear that song, it makes me cry because it makes me think of this very fucked up thing that happened. Yeah, it's very sad. But then like it's weird because then I was like confronted with this song when you did this ridiculous fucking
Aaron, I've been thinking about that the whole time. I was like, I made Aaron watch a 7-minute burlesque act where I drew a demon or angel summoning circle with whipped cream and then cried while eating a pie naked. And this is her like sad song.
I was like, I just won't bring this up until later. But it's nice because like it
Now you can just think of me being an asshole.
Honestly, kind of, yeah, because his name is Mike, and he died several years ago now. It was, he died right before our 10-year reunion, so it would have been like 2005. So it's been like several years now. And so it was nice that was like the first time it was kind of recontextualized for me was this like really ridiculous burlesque performance.
Oh, my magnum opus.
Yeah, so it's that song makes me cry, and I did cry while you were doing it, both because I was like sad because of my friend who died, but also because it made me laugh so hard that I cried. That it was like a really nice experience to be like, okay, it's nice to think of this other than just this like very sad moment right before. But it's weird too to think like he was so happy. Like he was so happy to be living in Alaska and working this job. He was engaged at the time. Like he was living like his best life, and like honestly, he fell off a mountain. He didn't experience any pain. He died almost immediately. Like he didn't feel that death. And so it's like it's really hard to sit inside of that emotion of like he he was singing this song because he was so happy to be alive. And so I think that's part of what makes me cry, is that it, like, to know that his life ended right after that is hard, but also, like, he lived a great life and he died very young, but he also, like, his family remembers him in a way that is very loving, and everybody loved this kid, and, like, that's what that song makes me think of. And now it also makes me think of you drawing whipped cream pentagram and crying on the stage naked. So
It
it's
wasn't a
a
pentagram, it was an angel summoning circle.
whatever. Who cares?
I do.
So
I
yeah,
learned how to
that's
draw a series accurate angel summoning circle and whipped cream.
ridiculous. But yeah, that's my answer. Carry on my wayward son makes me cry. What's your answer?
I'll just put this out there, and Aaron, anytime you need me to recontextualize anything by making a complete asshole out of myself, I'm happy to do it.
Fantastic. The other song that reminds me of him is Gwen Stefani's song where she chants bananas. So, if you ever want to do that.
Mine is I can't listen to the Rainbow Connection without thinking about my grandpa, and then that makes me cry. So it's like a very basic answer, but I remember one time, it was pretty soon after he passed, I used to work at a preschool, and I was the kitchen manager, so I would, like, deliver food to them, and Rainbow Connection is a song that, like, is in a lot of preschools, and they were, like, listening to it and singing, and I walked in and I was, like, smacked with the song, and so I was, like, delivering their food while trying not to cry in front of these children. Then I had to, like, take a moment and be like, "Get it together." I was just giving them their, like, fucking meatloaf or whatever and being like, "Don't cry, don't cry, don't cry." Yeah. Woo! Just think about me eating a pie while fake crying. Anytime you're sad, it'll make you feel better.
Yeah, that's true. It did make me feel a lot better.
All right, that was a long-ass podcast, but you know what? Whatever. We've been gone for months. You missed us probably, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. If you're listening to this, you probably did miss us. Thanks. We missed you too.
Stay angry. Do what you can. If you want to get an abortion, go get a fucking abortion. Fuck everybody else.
Mm-hmm. Also, an action item, if you feel like I can't donate time by going to rallies, I'm not really sure what else to do. If you can donate money, don't donate to Planned Parenthood. Like, Planned Parenthood does a lot of great things, but Planned Parenthood is also a multi-million-dollar organization. They do not need your donations right now. They need money, but this is not the time to put that money into Planned Parenthood. Give to your local abortion funds, and if you need help figuring out what those are, go to abortionfunds.org, and they list out every single abortion fund for every state. And if you're living in a place that has abortion access, consider giving to abortion funds in places that are about to lose abortion access, like Kentucky and Louisiana and Texas and Florida. Like, those people need that money, and they basically operate on shoestring budgets because no one ever thinks to give money directly to abortion funds, and they really fucking need it. So that's your action item. If you can't give time and you can give money to abortion funds.
Yeah. And then if you can't give money because you're not in a place to, tell the people you know who have money about that.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Talking about this stuff. If you don't have money, you can't donate time, talk about why you're pro-abortion. Like, that stuff matters. Talk to the people in your life, have uncomfortable conversations, get in people's fucking faces about it, and let them know, I benefit from abortion, you benefit from abortion, we all benefit from abortion being safe, legal, and accessible to whoever wants one. Not even needs one necessarily. Whoever wants to have an abortion should be able to get one.
100%.
Absolutely.
All right, that's it. That's the podcast. I don't know when we'll be back. We haven't decided what our new schedule is. Life is in the way. But hey, there's always extracts and Spooky 30s.
So yeah.
Listen to those. If you want to follow us on the internet, I'm at Stella_Cheeks.
I'm at NYD Urgency on Instagram.
You can follow us on NYD Productions on Instagram and Twitter. And you can join our Discord through our Patreon at patreon.com/NYD Productions. You can join for as little as $1, as much as you want. You get access to the Patreon, which has like outtakes and unofficial channels and silly shit and whatever. But then it also gets you access to our Discord, which is really fun. And I'm in it every day. Aaron's gonna get in it. I swear to fucking God, she's gonna. But we also do our book club through that. And our book club is meeting next Sunday. We're reading Murder on the Orient Express.
May 15th is next Sunday, by the way.
Yeah, so if you want to join and slam that book and join our book club, you can. But if you want to wait until we pick our next one, look, book club has been really fun. I love a Now Your Demographic book club.
I
It's
do too.
very
It's
fun.
been great. It's really fun. I love that we have like a pretty regular crew, and then we have some people who like come in and out of it every month. Like, I think our next book club theme, we're trying to read through a bunch of different genres, and so I think our next one is romance. I don't remember actually.
I think it might be romance. It might be because this one was a mystery.
Right.
I think it might be romance. I'm not sure. We haven't decided.
But
Because we've done horror, sci-fi, romance, memoir.
Yep. And we, as a book club, all pick it together. It's not like we just pick it and then, like, decree this is what we're reading next. We, like, let people inside of the book club pick it. We let people suggest things. Like, that is part of what makes it a fun book club, is having other things suggested to us that we can read outside of what we would normally read. So that is part of the appeal of a book club. Who would have thought? So join our Discord so you can participate in that. And then also on our Patreon, we release the recordings of that afterwards so you can get it.
Well, we're going to once Stella fucking figures shit out.
Yes, we have them recorded. We just have to figure out how to deal with it.
And then we one of them recorded because Stella is mad at it. Discord is confusing. I'm old. Leave me alone.
Yes, we're figuring it out. We're figuring it out. So we'll be releasing those too. If you'd like to listen and you can't participate for the time that we have it slotted for, that's something that's coming on our Patreon in the future. Is that it? I think that's everything.
That's it. I don't know. NotYourDemoPod@gmail or NotYourDemo@gmail. I don't know. You know how to get to us. This is an old ass podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. You can figure it out. Just go to the NYD Productions Twitter and Instagram. You can figure it out through there. It's really easy from there, actually. Also, you can participate in the conversation online by using the hashtag #NotYourDemoPod.
Hey, she remembered how to do this.
I remembered.
All right, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers who have babies, and don't be an asshole and fuck RBG.
Yeah, I think that's a good ending, actually. Don't be an asshole, fuck RBG. Bye!
That baby said, "Oh, are you good at podcasts? Because I fucking hate podcasting."
For real. He's literally been asleep for like 30 minutes. He's like, "Oh, did you hit record?" Fuck his podcast.
Incredible timing, Gene. Never change.
All right, buddy.